everyone, and welcome to today's writing lesson. Today is Tuesday, and we're going to be doing lesson 1 for the week, and we're going to be focusing on informative writing. Let's look at our learning intention and success criteria. We are learning to write an information report about an Australian animal using our gathered information. So today we're actually moving away from the planning stage of an information report and we're going to be writing it. And we're going to be using our gathered information that we put together last week. Here's our success criteria. I can write a title. I can write a classification. I can write about the animal's appearance, and I can use the information report checklist. So this slide is just a quick reminder that we are focusing on Australian animals. And in last week's lessons, you should have chosen your Australian animal that you were going to be focusing on for your writing. And you should have done your research for that and put together your gathered information about your chosen Australian animal. Now, here are the steps to writing an information report that I showed you last week. And we're going to use these steps just to make sure that we're on the right track and to remind us of the part that we're up to today. So last week, we focused on researching our information about our chosen Australian animal, and we put that information into our gathering information chart. Now, this week, we're going to be focusing on actually writing the report. So we're writing our final report. We're putting all our gathered information together to make one final report. And as always, we're going to refer back to our information report checklist at the end, just to make sure we've got everything we need. There are 4 things we're going to be focusing on today. And the first thing is to make sure we write the title of our information report. And that always goes at the top of our report. So I might not have spoken that much about the title before, but the title is actually really important because it tells the reader what your report is going to be about. So it should actually be the first thing that we write on our page. Now, the second thing we need is the classification. Remember, for the classification, we write about what type of animal it is. The third thing we need is to write about the animal's appearance. So we're going to be writing a sentence about what the animal looks like. And the last thing we need to do is use the information report checklist to make sure we've got all the important things we need. Hopefully you kept your gathering information chart from last week's lesson, because this is now going to be really important for our writing of our information report today. So last week when we gathered information, we made sure that we had a classification. We had information about the animal's appearance. We had information about the diet, the habitat, and an interesting fact as well. So we are going to be using all of those parts to put together our proper report today. And just to remind us of the process that we're going to be following, we need to make sure that we're using the most important bits of information about our chosen Australian animal. So you will see when I show you an example in a minute that even though I've put together quite a few bits of information on my chart here, I am only going to pick some of the parts that I think are the most important or that I really want to focus on to write my information report. So for example, you might see that when I write about the kangaroo's appearance, I might only choose to write about its long tail and its pointy ears in that sentence. So the aim is not to make our sentences really long. We're just picking certain parts of information that we really want to focus on. for our sentences today. Now, you might remember this information report sheet from when we wrote our information report all together about lions. And we have all the different parts of an information report on here. Let's just refresh our memories. So we've got the title here at the top. We've got the classification next, the appearance, the habitat, the diet, and finally the interesting fact. So this is the order that we are going to follow again, just like we did for our lion information report, except you are going to be now writing your report about your own chosen Australian animal. So on the next slide, I'm going to show you an example of an information report I wrote using my gathered information about kangaroos. So my information report is going to be about kangaroos, but you might have chosen a different Australian animal to write about. So you will write about that animal. So the aim today is not to copy my example, but just to use it as an example of the structure. So the way that the information report is laid out. Now here is my example of an information report about an Australian animal. And of course, last week I chose to research kangaroos. So my report is going to be about kangaroos. And there were 3 things that I want to focus on writing in my report today. If you remember back to our learning intention from the beginning of the lesson, you will remember that we had 4 things we wanted to do. And 3 of those were to write the title, the classification, and the appearance. So you can see at the top of my paper here, I've got the title that says kangaroos. And that's really important because I want my reader to know straight away that I am going to write about kangaroos. And the next part is the classification. And here's my sentence. Kangaroos are marsupials. Simple. I've got my capital letter at the beginning, my finger spaces in between my words, and my full stop at the end of the sentence. Now that's my classification done. It tells the reader what type of animal a kangaroo is. And the next thing I needed was the appearance. And here's my sentence. Kangaroos have a long tail and pointy ears. So you can see, even though in my gathered information I wrote about more physical features of the kangaroo, today I have just chosen 2 features. I've chosen to write about the long tail and the pointy ears. So that's what you need to do. Just pick maybe 2 main features that you'd like to write about in your report and write a sentence about those in your appearance sentence today. Now, just a reminder before you start writing your information today, you can use a lined paper like I have, a lined piece of paper. You might already be working in a workbook that has lines in it, which is fantastic. So you can use those lines to help you write your sentences. If you're not using lined paper, that's fine. You can ask an adult in your house or a big brother or sister to help you structure your information report. And you can see here underneath my headings, I've got some lines. So I've underlined here under classification and I've underlined here under appearance. That's just to help you see where everything is in your report. And it's a great way to remind you what parts you've already written for your report. So as soon as I look at my writing here, I can see straight away that I've got my classification and my appearance. You don't need to write those words on your report. You can just go straight into writing your sentences. But it is a good way, like I said, to help you remember what you've already done and what you might still need to do. And they are quite big words, so if you need help writing those words like classification and appearance, you can definitely ask an adult or a big brother or sister in your house just to help you write those words. So you can have some time now to go off and write your information about your chosen Australian animal. Remember, I've just chosen to write about kangaroos, but you've probably chosen a different animal to write about, and your information might be a little bit different to mine, even if you did choose to write about kangaroos. So just make sure your information report is definitely your own work. I really look forward to seeing your information report starting to take shape. Just make sure that you remember to keep your work from today, because as you can see, we're not finished our report yet. This is just what we're focusing on today, but we still have to write the rest of our report tomorrow. We've still got to write about the diet, the habitat, and the interesting fact. So make sure you keep this piece of paper wherever it is in your house and have it ready for next lesson. Now, I've just popped up my example of an information report again, in case you would like to come back to this slide and make sure you've got everything in your report and follow the same structure that I have used to write my report. And also, I'd just like to tell you how important it is to make sure that your work is nicely presented and that your writing is as neat as possible. When you are writing something, you want your reader to be able to read it easily and to understand what you have written. So please really make sure you've got your capital letters at the beginning of your sentences, your finger spaces in between your words, and your full stops at the end of your sentences. They will be really important for the reader who is going to be reading your information report. And Miss Coote and I will definitely be going through and reading your reports, but we're also going to be putting together a bit of an information book for all of you to see, and it's going to have all your wonderful information reports inside that book. Now, because we are at home, the book is going to be on the computer for you to see, so we'll pop it up on our Google Classroom when it's done, and that will be something for you to read. So really make sure that you do your best handwriting and you've got your work laid out as nicely as possible on your paper. And it doesn't matter if you make mistakes, you can rub out your mistakes, or you can get a fresh piece of paper if you'd like to start again and go from there. And just make sure that you take a photo of your work, pop it up in your completed work doc in Google Classroom for us to see. And definitely remember to keep this piece of paper, because like I said, we're going to be continuing the report and finishing it off tomorrow. And that is actually going to be your finished, completed copy of your information report that we're going to put in our report book for our classes to see. So it's going to be an information book about Australian animals that K Blue and K Purple have made. So after you have written your title, classification and appearance today, come back to the lesson and we'll finish off. If you can remember back to our learning intentions from today's lesson at the beginning, you might remember that our fourth thing that we needed to do was to use our information report checklist. So obviously we didn't get through everything today because we just focused on the title, the classification and the appearance. So we don't need to check off everything today, we just need to check off the things that we've done. So we've got our classification today, and we've got our appearance done today. So that means you can see what's left for tomorrow. You can see that we still need to write about the habitat, the diet, and the interesting fact. All right, everybody, it's now time to reflect on our lesson. I hope you enjoyed writing your information today about your Australian animals. I can't wait to see what you have written. We are learning to write an information report about an Australian animal using our gathered information. So I showed you how to go back to your gathering information charts from last week and to use parts of that information to start writing your information report today. Here's our success criteria. I can write a title. We've got that. That is the title at the top of our page that tells our reader what our report is going to be about. I can write a classification. We did that as well. I can write about the animal's appearance. We did that. And I can use the information report checklist. We did that at the end too. Thank you so much for watching today's writing lesson, everybody. I can't wait to see what you've got on your information reports so far, and I'll see you for tomorrow's lesson. Bye.